You have the floor.
Thank you, Commissioners. Kathy Morgan for the planning staff. In your packet was regarding Zone 2019-59, there was a memo at the February 6th Planning Commission meeting. There was a motion to defer and to ask the applicant to come back with a different site plan that would limit the number of duplexes on the site to 3. And as you can see in the memo, that would have, we have added a protective overlay to limit it to uses that are allowed in the TF3 zoning district. The zoning lot shall be platted and limited to 3 duplexes for a total of 6 units. And any changes to the protective overlay would require approval by the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. So this is the new site plan that the applicant has submitted. You can see that the duplexes are larger. It was 41 feet by 70, and now it's 54 feet by 70. The garages, or the driveways, have access to West 9th Street. You've got the 20-foot rear setback, 15-foot side setback on Gow, and the interior setbacks as prescribed by the zoning district. And then there's a 25-foot front setback off Gow for the TF3 zoning district. Oh, sorry, 9th Street, thank you. And in addition to the packet were emails that were sent to the office after the conclusion of the Planning Commission meeting on the 6th.
Questions for Kathy? Seeing none, thank you. Agent or applicant? State your name and address for the record, and you have 10 minutes.
Kirk Miller, K.E. Miller Engineering. I'm the agent, 117 East Lewis. And we are fine with staff comments. We took it down to 3 duplexes. So it'll be platted into 3 lots. Be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for the agent? Mr. Foster?
Mr. Miller, did you see any of the information that was submitted by the neighbors or some of those letters?
Yeah, I did.
I noticed the one, and I'm having a little trouble finding it here, but I thought there were some good comments in one about fencing over on Gow, I believe it was. Did you happen to read some of that and make note of perhaps some good suggestions there?
We will make note of the suggestions, yes.
Thank you.
Additional questions for the agent? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody from the audience wants to speak on this issue, come forward, please. State your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Gregory Boyajian. I live at 3325 West 9th Street. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm speaking in opposition to this zoning request 2019-059. To recap the presentation that was given to you on the 6th, we addressed 6 of the 7 factors, and they are stated as neighborhood opposition, which has been well noted, characteristic of the neighborhood, recent TF3 zoning are outside the 350-foot radius of the ownership list. Development of the neighborhood started in the late 1940s, which is defined by large lots in the areas, several of them being over 20,000 square feet. Existing and land use, all of the current land use lots around this area are SF5 within the 350-foot radius of the ownership list. Impact to community facilities, we did make a statement in addressing that there is local street flooding to the west of Gow and coming down close to Gow, and this was also addressed by the city back in 2009. For the last two factors, I am not being disrespectful, but I'm pushing back on words used by the staff report. Suitability of application area, which noted in the staff report, is based on a could statement indicating possibilities against rezoning. The property is presently zoned SF5, single-family resident, and the property could be developed with new single-family residents if it was platted. With respect to detrimental impact, noted by the staff report that the Unified Zoning Code will mitigate any detrimental effects on the nearby properties. The staff report does not list the detrimental effects, nor does it their mitigation. So I thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Good day.
Questions for the speaker? Mr. Foster?
I think it'd be a good chance just to reiterate some of those detrimental concerns. You mentioned water, and one that sticks in my mind is the traffic related to the school. Can you describe that a little bit further?
One of the issues that has come about with the school being in close proximity is that parking along 9th Street in particular comes all the way down to within 100 feet of Gow Street. What the problem is late in the afternoon. By the time school gets out, between 4:30 and 4:45, that it becomes very congested in that sense. With respect to flooding, the railroad tracks to the west are the high point in the area. It has been noted that flooding comes down High Street in itself, and it's trapped between Gow and the railroad tracks, and Gow being more of the high point to the east.
Any additional questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, Robert Edgington, property owner of 1040 North Gow, which is directly north of the corner of in question. I ask that you decline this because of a lot of the reasons that Greg has just commented on. I will just go over to briefly. The traffic is very heavy during school hours, and when it is flooded during school hours, it's almost impossible. Outside of lack of characterization to the rest of the neighborhood, they were all zoned single-family dwellings, and we ask the board to oppose this approval. Thank you.
Any questions for the speakers? Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to speak on this issue? Bring it back to the agent or applicant for rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
As I pointed out last meeting 2 weeks ago when we discussed the drainage problem is between Gow and the railroad, like they said. This property drains the other direction away from Gow Street. So this property is not affecting that drainage problem they have right now. And if it's developed, it still won't be affecting it. All the water's going in the opposite direction of the drainage problem. This property has been vacant for, I believe, 7 years. So this was probably pretty ripe for an infill type project. It's hard to do new single family development in an existing neighborhood because you don't want to be the most expensive house on the block, especially if you're not going to be as big as the existing houses. You know, it's just the cost per square foot to build it versus the value per square foot of the existing structures. It just doesn't work out economically to build a new single-family house on there unless somebody really wants to live there. But we would request that we do get this zone change. There are multiple duplex lots in the area, maybe not within the 350 feet, but a standard city block, 600 feet. So we're only talking about a half block of an area that they're referring to that there aren't single-family or duplex housing. There is duplex housing up at 10th and Sheridan, which is about 600 feet away probably. Then there's some more over on 9th Street to the east of it. So there's a few scattered in the area, and there's a few vacant lots that, or older lots that may have older structures that someday may also be up here for rezoning into a duplex type of situation.
Any questions for the agent? Seeing none, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Back to the board.
I move that we approve the request.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Foster?
I would either by substitute motion or just request on the original motion. We did receive, I think, a well-crafted letter from a person that lives at 1003 North Gow Street and outlined a lot of good information that we ought to take concern for. And there was the suggestion that stands out to me is a 6-foot privacy fence along the sidewalk along Gow Street. And I've been through this property and just driven by when some of the activities of school and things like that are in order. And I think this would be a very good suggestion, is to include in a motion the requirement for the 6-foot privacy fence. And I don't know that we can touch upon it, but there are some existing trees there that if those were allowed to remain, that would help to soften the impact of the development. The second item from the letter would be, and perhaps this is something the neighbors need to help us on, is there an official contact for the neighborhood? So one of the items mentioned here is to have some way to contact the management company who owns these particular properties. You can go to the mic if you'd like, go to the podium.
My name's Greg Boyajian. La Plata Park Neighborhood Association in its totality has been suspended. And for the last 4 years, I've been acting as the president for the neighborhood association itself. So for a contact to the neighborhood, I would be that. For a contact to the applicant, that would be something different.
So in other words, this concept that the property management company would provide you with contact information, that's something you're not interested in?
In providing, what's the word? In providing discrepancies about what's going on in the property, there is a city complaint system that allows us to complain to the city to take action with respect to if the property is being upkept, if there's too many cars, if cars are being left in the street and not being moved. I believe there's a mechanism already in place to take care of that from a resident's perspective. I would have to say who would be the contact for the ownership of the property would be provided by the city if need be.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Blick, I'm sorry, Mr. Foster, you still have the floor.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Blick?
I have a question for Mr. Foster. Are you talking about putting a 6-foot privacy fence the whole length of the property or just along the house to the backside? Because I would be afraid if the whole length of Gow on that one side with, with turning and all that stuff, it would be
You wouldn't be able to put it in the front yard setback. So the front 25 feet, you wouldn't. I'm not sure a fence is gonna really do a whole lot of good there. You're looking at the side of the building there.
I would suggest then along the northwest corner there, And I wish Ms. Igo was here to present this information, because I really am concerned about the safety aspect of the kids, and as I understand, there's a bus stop here as well for the school.
Additional comments? We have a motion. Do we have a motion?
I made a motion to
And who made the second? Ms. Miles? We have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All those in favor of the motion signify with the upraised hand. Those opposed? Passes 9-1. Next item, please. Where are we at? 4.6, our last item. Yay!
Good afternoon, once again, Philip Zevenbergen with planning staff. Before you today is Zone 2020-03 with CUP 2020-02. The applicant is requesting to establish the Harbor Isle Commercial 2 Community Unit Plan located along, really it's West 40th Street comes along this way, but Highway I-235 is most notable. And right here is North Amenden Avenue. To give some perspective, this is North Meridian at the interchange with I-235. You can see here on the zoning map that part of the request is for the zone change to take the parcel that's west of Amenden, which is currently zoned single-family SF5, and rezone it to GC to match the remainder of the parcel that is in question to the east. What is also interesting about this case is that it includes two separate CUPs as they're currently formed. The property to the west of Amenden is not part of any CUP at this moment. This parcel right here is part of CUP DP 141, which is the Word of Life Community Unit Plan. And then this 4.4 acre parcel right here is identified as parcel B of this CUP right here, which is DP 86, which is the Duke's Diamond CUP. When all of this is done, this whole property will be the Harbor Isle Commercial 2 CUP. The Word of Life Ministry CUP will cease to exist, and then the Duke's Diamond CUP will be amended to note that parcel B is no longer part of the CUP. So kind of complicated, but that's what all it is this will all become under one ownership in one CUP, and the other documents amended to indicate that. I've got the CUP drawing here. This is where Amenden Avenue is right now. It will be vacated during the process of platting. They will be dedicating a new right-of-way at this location again, during the time of platting, and it will serve as the major access off of 40th Street to the CUP. Any other parcels that do not have access to a public street will have cross-lot access agreements, which is standard fare within CUP development. Regarding the text of the CUP, staff has some additional recommendations for the general provisions that were not part of the original submission. Most notably is under general provision number 18, which lists the prohibited uses that would be allowed in GC but are not appropriate for this site. The applicant states prohibited uses being adult entertainment establishments, sexually oriented businesses, and correctional placement residences. Staff would like to add to that list recycling processing centers, reverse vending machine, animal care general, a kennel, which is boarding, breeding, training facility, outdoor storage as a principal use, as well as a vehicle storage yard. As you can see, when it is platted, it will have 7 parcels, as well as 4 reserves. The largest parcels will be on either side of the newly dedicated right-of-way. The smaller parcels will be kind of to the extreme east and west of the property. As I mentioned before, all those without access to any public roads will have cross-lot agreements as part of the CUP. Access controls will be dealt with at the time of platting. The proposed CUP language has the standard language for landscaping, lineage, lighting, drainage, cross-lot circulation, and parking. Not necessarily going to go into the major details with it. I'll touch on the lighting. It's allowed to have a 24-foot height except within 200 feet of residential zoning. In that case, it will be restricted down to 15 feet. Regarding the zoning, residential zoning is present on the north property lines. This is single-family SF5. This is single-family SF20. So there is residential zoning nearby that would restrict the height of lighting if it were developed within 200 feet of that zoning district. There's other language that was missing from the CUP that staff has recommendations for to be added. Most notably, apart from the general provisions for prohibited uses, is the standard architectural controls, which require that the CUP, all buildings within the CUP, to have uniform character and color with similar predominant features, and having predominantly earth tone colors in the walls and the roof structure as well as limiting any vivid colors to an incidental accent. The statement regarding the labeling of roadways and right-of-way lists was completed prior to the Planning Commission meeting, so that is no longer an issue there. Signage is pretty standard. They're allowed to have monument signs restricted to 25 feet in height, except for along the highway frontage, which will be allowed to be 35 feet in height. Staff and the applicant are in agreement regarding the sign restrictions for each parcel, and for the sake of time and detail, I won't go into those details unless there's a specific question about those. Going back to the zoning, as I mentioned before, there is residential to the north. That land is undeveloped land, which is the SF5 property. The SF20 property, as well as the SF5 property over here, this is undeveloped in the county. This is a part of the USD 259 bus storage area, as well as a driver training track. To the south and to the west is the freeway and the interchange with K96 and Meridian. To the east is GC, General Commercial, and the Duke's Diamonds property, which you can see has a football soccer field here and a baseball diamond as well. East 40th Street is a paved 2-lane road. Meridian is a paved 4 or 5-lane arterial. Amadon currently is gravel, but as I mentioned before, during the plating process, it's going to be vacated. All public facilities are in place but may need to be extended to serve the property, and guarantees of that will be written into the plating text. Regarding the comprehensive plan, it is indicated as new residential. However, nearby you can see that there's general commercial here. And the fact that over half of it is currently zoned general commercial, it is not an unreasonable request to use this land for commercial uses, especially considering its frontage to a highway, which is a very apt place to have general commercial zoning within the city, according to the code and according to the comprehensive plan. Overall, staff is recommending approval based on the revised development guidelines that is part of the staff report. And with that, I can show you some pictures around the area. This is on what is Amadon Avenue right now, looking south at the highway. I believe they were moving some of the lane barriers, and there's a lot of congestion at that time. This is looking northwest along Amadon Avenue. This is 40th Street going west. I believe that's Riverlawn Church along Meridian. This is looking northeast. There is a wireless communication, a cell phone tower on the property right now. But as you can see, the majority of the land is undeveloped with a barrier of trees on the north property line. This is approximately where there is actually a concrete curb cutout when they made 40th Street, they built this drive that I was standing in right there, and I believe it's the location, or would be the approximate location of the new dedicated right-of-way. This is, again, looking back to the northwest. At the cell phone tower, you can see the interchange for K96 here. There, again, there's Riverlawn Church on Meridian. So looking to the northeast, these are the ball fields as part of Duke's Diamonds. Parcel B is basically this land right to the west of those ball fields that would be included in this. This is over at Duke's Diamonds, looking to the northwest, showing you what that property looks like. That's immediately to the east. And then this is looking due west along 40th Street, looking as you would travel towards Meridian. Again, this is the highway interchange with K96 and Meridian. With that, I can stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? Mr. Green?
Yeah, Philip, the proposed street connection, and this may be a question for the agent. Where is that going to? I mean, I know it's going to the north, but what is it connecting to?
I'll defer to the agent on that.
Thank you. Additional questions for Philip? Seeing none, thank you. Agent or applicant? State your name and address for the record. You have 10 minutes.
Chris Rose with Boffin Company, agent for the applicant. The applicant agrees with staff comments, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. As far as that, the future dedicated right-of-way, this owner and the owner to the north have been working together to try to work out a plan to make sure everybody's on the same page on that kind of access. I think what their intent is to try to get that road worked back around to Seneca, so.
That's what I assumed, but I just wanted
Yeah.
to ensure that, because it looks like there could be some more residential development there between the commercial and the residential.
Just
Go ahead.
In that,
This piece
yeah,
here,
that area
yeah.
there in the pink, it looks like there could be some more residential.
Yes, I'm not 100% sure if he's going to do that as commercial or if he's doing commercial and residential or whatever for that piece. So, yeah, probably a combination.
Mr. Hartman?
So Chris, you're okay with the changes they made in item 18 there?
Yes. At least that's what Russ told me. I'm just a yes man today.
Oh, Russ. Mr. Florence?
Excuse me. Do we need to address the possibility of someone maybe wanting to put a off-site sign on those properties? Because I know there's supposed to be a 600-foot clearance, but that would put that toward the back, and that may not fit with later plan.
The CUP regulations would prohibit an off-site sign since it being a CUP.
I got a question. I don't know if it's for Chris or for staff. Why is the land to the north of this still in the county? What keeps, we've gone all the way around it. Why hasn't that been annexed?
I'm going to guess that it's over 20 acres and it hasn't been annexed based on over the 21 acres or whatever, that they cannot annex it based on just their annexation statutes.
David Circle, it's a donut hole, okay. Does that create any difficulties in planning when everybody works together nicely?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience wish to speak on this issue? Okay. Okay, bring it back to the commission for action.
Move for approval, subject to staff comments.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Hartman, a second by Mr. Nix. All those in favor of the motion signify with the upraised hand. Motion passes unanimously. And with that, we stand adjourned.
Enjoy the game.